So welcome back to the Trade Squad. This is part 4, and we are excited to be back with you. Leah and Audrey, of course, are here as my co-hosts on the Trade Squad, and we've got an extra special guest. Despina is joining us all the way from Berlin, and if you missed our introduction to Despina, go back to part 1, and you can hear more about what she does in the shipping and the maritime industry, as well as for women in the industry as well. So our next topic is a big one. I asked this question on my LinkedIn page, my Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn page. It was the question of the week a few weeks ago, and it was, what is your supply chain addiction? What gets you excited about supply chain and why? I can tell you a lot of the answers that came through, and I'll pepper them through this conversation, but a lot of people said the people. Everybody loves the people in supply chain. Now, before we dive into that conversation, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why supply chain is an addiction for me. First, I think it's a bit in my blood because I grew up with 2 entrepreneurial parents, and they were talking about supply chain at the dinner table since I was 10. So I don't think I really had a choice, and it was just injected in my blood, and I've drunk the juice, and I'm totally addicted. When I was in operations, for me, the addiction was the everyday challenges and the problem solving. The nuisance for each customer and each product the nuances were like so different. Every time I got on the phone and talked to somebody, and they all had different challenges that I had to solve. When I was in sales, it was the challenge of getting in the door. First of all, Audrey, okay, we talked about that in the last episode about cold calling. Anyways, getting in the door was an extreme challenge, but then understanding the customer's needs. And what I found was some of the resources, like Audrey and I talk about FITT, the Forum for International Trade Trading, a lot. But my CITP designation through them really helped me to understand the needs of the customer and not just look at it from a freight forwarding perspective of this is what we can do, this is all we can do, and try to problem solve it from there. And then lastly, being in marketing, I really enjoyed disrupting the status quo when I first started the podcast. I mean, marketing 3 years ago in supply chain was a lot different than it is today. And it was very stuffy and kind of boring. So when I started the podcast, it was 2 babes talk supply chain. We looked to shake that up, but that was a little bit of a challenge with that name too. So anyways, I'm going to throw it out to you guys. Leah, what's your supply chain addiction? Why do you love this industry?
Well, you said actually a lot of what I feel the same about. I think the problem solving is just fascinating and endlessly fascinating because it's just all over the map. Everybody has their own unique problem. And so being engaged in trying to help companies find the answers and the solutions, I love problem solving. And I also love taking a look at the landscape of new tools and resources and services and figuring out how you adapt those new technologies in a way that's really sustainable and really productive. So I would say those are my 2 big ones, problem solving and adapting new technologies to your supply chain.
Yeah. Despina, what do you think? What is your supply chain addiction?
I would say the people as well. You said that many people told you it's the people. It's the same for me. Since I've been in this industry, I've met some great people and I have learned a lot. And this interaction is really interesting with people from all around the world. It kind of opens your eyes and gives you a different perspective to, if you were working in an industry where you don't get this type of interactions. And the second part, I would say more connected to my specific job is the new technologies coming in and seeing how we can implement them and seeing if they work for people or not, and if they don't, how we can tweak them. So for me, that's really interesting. And it has to do a lot with problem solving, as it was mentioned before, because you are trying to find new solutions to make people's lives easier. So I think that's always very fascinating when you manage to get that solution.
Yeah, and just before I jump into Audrey, it was brought up a couple of times in the conversation, and especially with the next generation of supply chain professionals, they're talking about the impact that they're making globally. Right? Like they're talking about going to work in a supply chain environment and making a difference. Making a difference in their coworkers' lives, making a difference in their end consumers' lives, right? Making a difference in the supply chain, just by, being there and coming up with creative solutions, or finding their voice and speaking up about some innovation, or thinking about things differently. And I don't know about you, but that is a new way of thinking for me,
Yes.
especially in supply chain. Thinking about what we do on a daily basis is impacting people globally. That's a lot of pressure. I don't know about you.
But I love that. How great is that?
I know. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We have very broad shoulders in shipping and supply chain, I think, right? So many things to carry. All right, Audrey, what about you?
Wonderful, because it gives a great sense of self-worth to, the young people coming into the industry, and it gives you so much more than just the salary at the end of the day. It's gratifying, and I'm happy if people feel that way, because it's also a very good way of keeping people in our industries. We do need talent. We do need young people choosing to be in our industries. So it's very important.
Absolutely. Audrey?
I'm an adrenaline junkie. So the every day coming in and it's a new challenge and a new problem. I'm sure you saw my air shipment on Twitter. So always something going on. So for me, it is the adventurous life, although I'm sitting behind a computer at a desk most of the time. No, it's the adventure life for me. I think the biggest thing for me, and we talked about the problem solving piece, and Leah and I would have that similarity on how to kind of incorporate new technologies. And for me, it's the translating what is technical and what is seemingly difficult and or just tedious to my teammates and to our customers. Being able to look at some of just the day-to-day operation piece and making it easier for my team to interact with and use, and thus support the customers and achieve kind of a great product launch. I mean, between stuff like LCL and SCL, Incoterms, kind of all of those, the VAT tax that we interact with globally, like those kind of pieces.
Trying to find a 3PL in Europe.
Yeah, how to find a 3PL in Europe, in the UK specifically. The UK's killing me. And also how to think about when they're doing, because we do a lot of innovative new products here, and we deal with customers globally. How to think about how the supply chain is going to fit into that, how the logistics is going to fit into that, and the sustainability piece is a huge pillar for our company. And not just like, okay, the product itself, is becoming more sustainable. But then if I'm routing different parts of the product to 6 different countries globally, and I've airshipped 3 of them, well, then how sustainable has that product? Right. And it actually gets released, how sustainable is that product? Or just, completely kind of, disrupted the percentage that was, well-intentioned. So thinking of it from that perspective too, of how are we organizing what we're doing to make the entire supply chain.
Yeah, well, and I think a couple other things to mention there too is how creative supply chain people are. I mean, we talk about the problem solving aspect, but to get to that solution, there's so much creativity that has to go into it. And then spiraling from that, I think that we can talk about, learning from each other. So, kind of that circular supply chain, circular conversation, going from people to creativity to, from problem solving, creativity, and then back to the people, because we learn from each other. Yeah. We've all got so many creative ideas from being problem solvers. and the backgrounds that we come from, right, to be in this industry, because a lot of people have fallen into this industry from different parts of industries. And so we learn a lot from each other, but then we're also really, really adaptable and really okay with change, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us. We did just talk about some of the shipping. So I think, any final thoughts on that? You just, about, supply chain being something that you love?
Well, I also just think it's really exciting. It's such an exciting industry because there's so many demands on it coming from so many angles. So it has to be adaptive and it has to change. And I think that adds to the excitement. And I think it speaks to the people engaged in it, because these are all people who are willing to say, all right, let's take a look at it. Let's see how we integrate these new potential solutions. So.
And it's not stagnant. And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have thought that I was a person to really get into certain aspects of this business, the trade finance piece and things like that. I'm not really an accounting person, but it's, just being curious. I mean, it's a great industry to have a personal sense of curiosity, because, there are things that there's so many pieces to it. Yeah. You can manage doing your day to day and you learn how to do that, but then it's like, you can explore. Yeah. So many different avenues. It's like, I mean, primarily my day-to-day is logistics and customs, but then how does procurement work? How does international tax work? How do, you manage, warehousing and inventory management? Like, there's just so many different pieces. So if you're a person who's like me and has like attention issues, a healthy sense of curiosity, then, there's a lot to explore. And I love that, it's not, there's just always a constant sense of learning, not just, through kind of certification or certain topics, but also just like you were saying, Sarah, like through each other.
Yeah. Well, and you never know, like, your journey in this industry, you never know where it's going to go. I mean, Audrey, did you ever think you were going to be on a YouTube show called The Trade Squad?
No. When I started as a summer student, like 15 years ago, no, I did not.
And then,
I was like packing samples. I was going to be like in political science. So.
And then, me and media, like supply chain media, like that wasn't even a thing, even.
Yeah. When I met you, yeah.
Yeah. When we met and you were my customer.
Yeah.
Now you're my trade bestie and we're on the trade squad together. Like, that's what a journey in supply chain looks like, folks. Okay. Yeah. Right here.
Make you famous.
Anyways, that was awesome. I love to hear, your whys and why you love supply chain. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you, Despina, for joining us on the Trade Squad. We appreciate you taking out the time while you're in Berlin to join us on the show. And Audrey and Leah, thank you again for being here.
Always.
Trade Squad out.